Hello my friends, I'd love for you to join me on this foraging trip at Healed Orchards. And this is an old abandoned apple orchard that's been given over to the town of Pepperell. So come with me and pick some autumn olives and some other things. So even in September, there are a whole slew of wild edibles available. Things are kind of winding down, cycles are finishing, but crab apples, autumn olives, some greens that are persistent, and nuts are all kind of waiting for a forager or an animal to get them. And one of the things that you'll find is you can typically find an abundance of whatever you're looking for right now. And so it's a great time to get out. Late August, early September. You can pretty much pick as much as you need without much consequence because you're not interrupting a growth cycle. Obviously, you only want to take what you need, not more. But it's a great time to get out and experience new plants. So I'm going to show you some of my favorite ones to collect right now. So, you think you're allergic to goldenrod. You're not. Unless you have a dermal allergy, which means that you have a reaction, you have contact dermatitis from this plant. You are not allergic to it. It's not causing your nose to be sniffly. It's not causing fall allergies for you. What is bothering you is Ambrosia artemisiafolia, or ragweed. And ragweed comes out at the same time as goldenrod. It has very inconspicuous flowers, whereas goldenrod has very clear, bright flowers, as you can see, and it grows in fields like this. This whole field is just filled with goldenrod. Now, goldenrod has pollen granules that are too large to fit into your histamine receptors. And what does this mean? It means that you cannot have an allergy in your histamine response from this. Ragweed can fit and does cause an allergic reaction in some people. It doesn't always do it for me. Some years it happens, some years it doesn't. The irony with goldenrod is that it's high in quercetin. And quercetin is used as kind of like an allergy medicine supplement. If you start dosing really early in the year with quercetin, it diminishes your allergic response to things. It also just functions as an antihistamine. So people will use goldenrod for their allergies to help clear up a runny nose, to help clear up kind of a gross throat and eyes. So it's ironic that the plant that's been proven since the 80s to not be able to cause a reaction in your histamine receptors is the one getting blamed. And just because it's really visible and pretty and it's everywhere here. And you can see just in this one little area, there's pretty much this entire field is all goldenrod. And it's a very conspicuous plant that gets a lot of blame for things, but it's a great host plant for lots of insects. The bees love it. This is a honeybee hanging out on there. So it's something that you want to have around, but it's not the cause of your fall allergies. So, and this is, if you look this up, you can find information about this everywhere. This is not a new discovery by science. Be sure to look for solidago or goldenrod. So one of my favorite things about late summer, early fall foraging is Elaeagnus umbellata, or autumn olive, or Russian olive is the other name. These grow prolifically in my area. They grow everywhere. And they typically have a couple forms. One of them has longer shaped berries, not quite egg-shaped, but elongated. The other variety is a little more circular and plump. There's also another form that's a little smaller, like these ones here. And they have these tiny berries that look like that. Now, these berries are really, really high in lycopene. You can see they have these like silvery golden flecks. The leaves themselves also have this silvery underside that has also a little flecking on the top. The leaves for this have been used for teas in traditional Chinese medicine for respiratory conditions. The fruit themselves are edible if you've properly identified them. However, you need to make sure that you've cross-referenced it, you've checked with a local expert, but these taste like a mix between a cranberry, maybe a strawberry, maybe fruit punch, and maybe a cherry. Every tree tastes different. So if you're going to engage with these, I recommend that you go around and you first get a proper ID of them, and then you start finding the trees in your area and you taste them. And every tree is going to taste different, so some of them you're going to love, some of them are going to be too bitter and astringent. The more astringent they are, the more sweetener they're going to need if you make a fruit leather out of them. However, you can still sweeten them enough to eat them. It's not a bad thing if they're astringent, but some have almost zero astringency. So I really recommend once you're comfortable identifying them, you go with a local expert, you've identified it with multiple sources, you find one that works for your taste buds. A lot of times when people don't like them, it's because they've picked one that's too astringent. And they don't have to be. Like, you can search for them and find all different types. The other feature you'll notice too is they're pretty shrubby trees almost. They can get relatively tall. But occasionally you'll find a tree that has spikes. This one doesn't have spikes, but some of these, which may be hybridized between Shepherdea canadensis and this plant, Elaeagnus umbellata, those ones, if you reach your hand in and you strip the berries, can cause all sorts of spikes in your hand. So just be careful of them, properly ID them, and you really have an abundant food source because they're so prolific. Like, I can't even express to you how much grows on one tree or one bush. Look at this. This entire thing is just filled with berries. So check out Elaeagnus umbellata, Shepherdea canadensis if you're in a different area, or autumn or Russian olive. Fine lycopene. One of my other favorite forest plants, or shrubs or trees, are Lindera benzoin, or spice bush. And this was one of many herbs used during the time of the colonists when they were trying to avoid consuming British tea from the East Indian Trade Company. There's a whole book all on tea alternatives that I read a long time ago. And one of the things that they tried to do was find herbs that were local that could be used as an alternative for coffee and tea. This plant, spice bush, does not taste like tea at all. It actually has almost like a pine sol taste to it. It's not a bad taste, but it's a very particular smell. However, the berries, when they're dried out and ground up, have sort of the flavor of allspice. So people use them as an alternative for allspice. But the leaves themselves are actually pretty nice smelling, and it's an abundant little plant. And this is what these look like. These are the soon-to-be buds for the flowers. And it has a very sort of like cleaner, almost lemony smell, but with a pine sol aroma inside of it. So you may like it as a tea or may not. It has a great antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral effect, so people use it as a preventative when they're feeling sick. But it's a very strange but very unique tree that grows in moist places. This is Lindera benzoin, or spice bush. Thank you guys for joining me on my little foraging trip. If you get a chance, check out Healed Orchard in Pepperell, Mass. And you won't regret it. Talk to you guys soon and let me know what you want to see next.